I'm Larry Menti. Welcome to Another Thing. It has become a common practice for parents to hold back a child in school, not for academic reasons, but in hopes that their child will excel as an athlete. Now, there is proposed legislation in New Jersey to stop that practice, and other states are taking notice. But when does a state overstep its bounds and trample on parents' rights? Ellen Kaloje looks at both sides of holding a child back for a competitive advantage. Ellen.
Thanks, Larry. A lot of kids are graduating from high school when they're 19 years old. 19. And that's because so many are now repeating 7th or 8th grade to get an advantage in sports like basketball. But so many coaches, parents, and even lawmakers are now crying foul.
It's not a new phenomenon, but it's certainly a growing trend where more and more parents are willing to turn a blind eye to their kids' social development, their academic development, with their only purpose in mind of having a bigger, faster, stronger kid in high school.
John Barr is a top investigative reporter for ESPN. His son Jack is in 7th grade and plays basketball and baseball, so he understands why a parent might consider holding their child back to rise above the rest.
When you see success stories like Karl Anthony Towns, for example, a New Jersey high school basketball phenom who repeated the 8th grade, went on to play at Kentucky for 1 year, and then became a first-round draft pick in the NBA. Karl Anthony Towns won a state high school championship as a freshman, sophomore, and junior. That's after he repeated the 8th grade. So people see success stories like that and they think, well, maybe my kid can be the next Karl Anthony Towns.
And Towns isn't the only success story. 76ers star Nerlens Noel also repeated 8th grade. And 4 of Jersey's top high school basketball players this year all repeated 7th or 8th grade. That's why some lawmakers introduced a bill to make sure everyone plays by the rules. The bill limits any student held back in 6th, 7th, or 8th grade to 3 years or 6 semesters of eligibility in high school. Stephen Timko of the New Jersey Interscholastic Athletic Association says he joins the bill's sponsors in their unease about those who manipulate the system for athletic advantage. And he says he's been in touch with lawmakers to share our input and thoughts about the bill. Some critics say parents, not the government, should decide what's best for their children.
At the core of this is the question of what's appropriate for kids. Is it right for them to repeat a grade when they really don't have to academically, just so they can be bigger, faster, stronger when they get to high school? And I think that's what this legislation is all about.
So if this bill does become a law in New Jersey to punish these student athletes, it could have national ramifications. Reporting for Another Thing, I'm Ellen Kaloje.
All right, thank you, Ellen. We want to continue the conversation on holding a child back for an athletic advantage with Joe Piro, who is the athletic director at Nutley High School. First, thanks for coming in. I appreciate it. There is a bill in front of the legislature in New Jersey to stop this practice. Let me ask you 2 things. First of all, are you for that bill?
I'm in favor of anything that levels the playing field and you know, creates a competitive balance. So I think Governor Cody's bill has merit, and I think that there's definitely substance to it.
How can you tell me what to do with my child? And how can you, if I say to you, I'm holding him back for social reasons, I'm holding him back for academic reasons, then you'd have to call me a liar at that point.
I think that's where the bill runs into its largest obstacle. I don't think we have that right. And I think what it will do is just create liars out of everybody. You know, I could easily simply say that, you know, my son or daughter is socially behind, and we want to hold her back or him back.
That's a big flaw in the bill. How would you get around that?
As a director of athletics, I don't encourage that practice.
Some do.
Some do. I don't. I don't believe it's healthy for the child, and I really believe that some of the things that we're doing now to young athletes, we're totally losing our focus.
Well, let me take that point for a second, because I'll play devil's advocate to that. What is wrong with me as a parent saying, Oh, I want my child to excel. I want them to have confidence. I know they're not going to be a pro player, but right now they're not as physically advanced as some of the other kids that are playing. Maybe they were held back. I want them to be able to compete with them because I think it's good for their continuing education. In athletics. What's wrong with me doing that?
There's nothing wrong with you doing that. There's nothing wrong with you doing that at all. That's your prerogative. The problem is, who am I to say you can't do that? It's your
Well, that's what the legislation would do.
That's what the legislation
that you're in favor
would do.
of.
I'm in favor of the legislation because I believe the spirit of the legislation is to deter not what you're talking about. It's to deter those parents who believe that there's a full scholarship or professional career, a advanced athletic career at the end of that rainbow. I don't believe, and I think you would be in the minority of the people that say, you know what, my son or daughter is not there yet, so I'm going to hold them back. I think that the majority of it is, I'm going to hold them back because my chances of getting a full scholarship to a Division I school, or my chances of him excelling in high school sports, excelling at the college level, and then maybe falling into that professional career are far greater if I hold them back.
It sounds like this whole legislation started in New Jersey because of a story that was written about a 15-year-old who is a freshman in high school who was held back, is physically gifted for his age, and that Rutgers University is already interested in at that young age. First of all, I thought that was not legal. And secondly, this is exactly what you're talking about.
Exactly. I think that we all have to take a step back and look at what we're doing with high school athletics. High school athletics is an extracurricular activity. We should be leveraging athletics to improve student performance. We shouldn't be doing it the other way around. And when you look at the amount of academic scholarship money that's available to high school students, it's 100 times what athletic scholarship money is available, 100 times, maybe even more. I mean, if we take football, for instance, and we'll use that because the numbers are the easiest. There's, I believe, and don't quote me on this, about 212 Division I schools that give full scholarships, okay, soup to nuts full scholarships. And they probably give anywhere from 30 to 40 scholarships per year. We'll do the math. I mean, how many is that? Is that 250,000 scholarships? There's 4 million kids that play high school football. There might be 4 million high school seniors.
So the chances are you're not getting it.
You have a better chance of winning the lottery. You have a better chance of winning the lottery. But academic scholarships is 10 times that. The amount of money that people invest into their child's athletic advancement, if you invested that money into tutors, you'd be far more successful getting that scholarship that you're looking for.
That's not the kids. That's the coaches. Those adults. They're the parents and the coaches that are telling the kids that you should fall back a grade. I just looked up before we started the interview that there are high schools in Texas where if you're playing for the football team, you're expected to be held back a grade so they can have a competitive advantage. There's basketball teams that do the same thing. And as you know, that's a huge advantage in that age group if the entire team is a year older than the other team. But it's adults doing this. It's not the kids.
I mean, everything trickles down. And I think the beginning of this whole issue that we're talking about probably started 20 or 25 years ago when we started, paying professional baseball players $30 million a year or $30 million over 5 years. And when it became such a big business on the pro level, and now look at what we do on the college level. I mean, you look at the NCAA basketball tournament, the amount of revenue that brings in is more so or almost the same as the Super Bowl and TV revenue and advertising, that sort of thing. It's becoming such a big business. It's filtering down to the high school level. It is, and it was only a matter of time before it didn't.
Have you had parents that have tried to do this?
Not in my career yet. We do have one now. I believe the issue, the one that we're talking about, is the one that prompted this legislation. I believe this issue started and was born in Nutley. And I can't comment on who or
I got
anything
it.
like that.
I think there's been stories written about it.
Yeah, yes, there has. So between this individual and the one in Wall Township, I think, is what prompted it to Governor Cody to get the bill.
Well, it's interesting then if it's in your area and it's with your school, that you would be for legislation to stop that from happening.
Well, I'll go back to what I said. We're an institution of learning. And I think we're losing sight of that. We're losing sight of educating kids. We're losing sight of what our goals are. Our goals aren't to get guys onto Notre Dame's football field. But if that happens, that's great. And then that's a feather in our cap, and that's a fantastic thing. But our goal is to educate those kids while they're in our building. Our goal is to help them function in a greater society and make a global impact and be able to leave our tutelage, I'll say, and have a conversation.
Thank you so much. That was really wonderful. I'd love to have you back to talk more about it, especially as the legislation makes its way through.
I'd love to come back.
Joe Piro, the athletic director at Nutley High School. When we come back, we're going to continue our conversation about sports, but fantasy sports, and the federal government and the state government trying to better legislate these internet sites.